Hi, and welcome to Morning Coffee with Pazan Academy. I'm Deanna, and today I want to offer some activities that parents can give to their kids during this very uncertain time where you're working from home, but you're also having to educate your kids while you're at home. And these are focused on science. And so most of these activities can be done independently. The kids won't need you there to complete them. And if you have kids in multiple grades, they can actually work together. So all of the children can be working on this activity so you can get your work done if you're working from home. We will have a link to our webpage for parent resources in our description below, so make sure you check that out as well. The first activity is a virtual natural history museum visit. Now, a lot of museums have virtual visits that you can take, and so for this activity, you're going to have your kids go online, go to the museum, and pick one area of the museum, because natural history museums are very large and they cover a lot of different topics from biology, geology. They have a hall of mammals usually, they have dinosaur bones, so have them pick one area and do a virtual tour. The key to this is to then have them write a report. Now you can have very pointed questions, and in our download that we offer on our resources page, we will have this written out for you. But you can have them write what their 3 favorite things were that they learned and why, 3 things that surprised them and why that surprised them, 3 things that maybe creeped them out or they thought were gross and why they felt that way, and 3 things that they already knew. Now, having these pointed questions and the whys are really important because writing a report serves several purposes. One, they're not just, browsing the internet with no sort of learning activity, but this holds some accountability. It makes them engage in the online exhibits a lot further and looking for these particular items. If you tell them just to write a paragraph about what they saw, it's not going to be engaging, but if you give them particular tasks to write about, then they're going to be trying to look for those things. And that keeps their brain active. And then writing is always a good thing. You can never get your kids writing enough. It's a skill that they will need throughout their life. So in these writings, you don't want to just have them do bullet points. You want them to write in a narrative format or essay format, complete sentences, and even have a topic sentence and really get them to engage in writing. On our resources page, we have some downloads on grammar and even handwriting, so these may be able to help them with their writing. And I recommend also to have them write these out by hand and not on a computer where they're having to switch back and forth between a document and then the window where they're looking at the exhibit. The main benefit of having them write by hand is that it is a more active way of learning, and studies show that retention is much higher if it's written out by hand as opposed to just typing things out. The next activity is similar, but you're going to have them go to a zoo or an aquarium website where they have a virtual exhibit. Now, I know for sure that the Cincinnati Zoo has a great online program, but your local zoo or other zoos or aquariums that you're familiar with may be putting more and more stuff online during this time period. But if you just want to know one for sure, go to the Cincinnati Zoo, and they have a great online learning program. And again, the same sort of format. You're going to have specific questions that we'll have in a downloadable sheet for you on our resources page, and have the student write up a report answering these prompts, but in a narrative format, in an essay format. And so this could be 3 days of activities. You could have them go to a natural history museum site, and then a zoo, and then an aquarium. So these activities can fill up quite a bit of time for you because the Natural History Museum has all sorts of galleries, and each one could be its own activity. And then you have zoos, and then you have aquariums. And so this is something that if you have science hour, you can just assign them every day, and then they know what to do independently. Another activity is an outdoor science day. And so if your kids are able to go out into the backyard or a local park and they can go out and observe nature, you want to have them identify at least 10 things: birds, plants, insects, trees. And so have them either take a picture or write notes If they have a cell phone, they can download apps on how to identify mushrooms and birds and trees, all sorts of things. On the handout that we have for this activity, we will list some of the names of those apps that you can download for free and have them identify the species. Now, this is great for a biology or an ecology or botany exercise. Once they identify the species, they're going to then do another written report. They're going to write what they used to identify the species. Well, this bird had a black head and a brown body, and so I looked up birds with black heads and brown bodies and that size, and that's how I found out what it was. And then they're going to research that particular species and learn about it. If it's a tree, then, does it fruit? Is it an evergreen? Is it deciduous? And they can learn about these different species that are around them all of the time. The same with insects and mushrooms, and it really is a fun, hands-on, engaging activity. Now, there is also an alternative activity if your kids can't get outside, if there's not a green space, or if the weather is just really horrible. There are tons of paintings of flowers and birds and trees. Particularly in the 1600s and 1700s, still life paintings were done, and they were so incredibly accurate. It almost looks like you could just pick the flower off of the canvas. Showing these images and then having them identify the plants and the insects that are in these paintings is another great way to do the same sort of exercise from inside the home. And again, in our downloadable worksheet, we will have some links to some of these resources. We also have a video that we did on an amazing resource of natural history and botanical and all sorts of prints dating back as far as the 1400s that are free online. So with all of these incredible online resources, it should be pretty easy to continue having your children learn about science on their own so you can get your work done. The last activity we have is going to need some supervision, and so I wanted to include this in case you wanted to have a more creative family time. Maybe you can do this after dinner, or in an afternoon break where everyone comes together, or if you have older kids, they could probably supervise it. But the Home and Garden TV channel had a great article about different science experiments that you could do with your kids while you're at home with household things that you probably have just laying around. Things like creating a geode, or making slime, or making moldable sand. These things are great activities. Again, they'll need more supervision, but it's more of a hands-on kind of a science experiment, and that might be fun for the whole family, or for your high school or college kids to do with the younger kids that are at home while you're working. So if you're going to start using a lot of these activities, particularly the ones with the museums or identifying different species, I would designate a notebook for each kid to have as a field notebook. And then they know this is their science notebook, and these are the sorts of things that they write, and then they can handwrite their essays. They can have their raw data of observations, just like a scientist out in the field would have, and this would be a really fun thing for them to continue on doing home. And even when they go back to school, they can continue working in their field notebook on their own if it's something that really interests them. I hope that these activities and ideas are helpful for you in this very uncertain time. We are putting out as much information and free resources as we can in order to help parents. Please share these with your friends, your family, your neighbors, anyone who you know may be able to use this information. And thanks for watching. Check out that resources webpage, and you can sign up for our mailing list on that page and get alerts to new resources that we're putting out regularly. I'm off to find some more resources to offer you, and we'll see you next time.